My name is Michael Satters. This is the 40-yard dash test. It's going to test speed and acceleration. What you need is 2 cones, or you can use tape to mark out lines. But cone 1 is going to be down here, and then 40 yards down is cone 2. You will have the athlete stand behind cone 1. Make sure they know where to stand, either behind or to the front, whatever, but make sure it's consistent. And they're going to take an athletic stance, whether it's something that they do normally in their sport. So maybe like this. The best thing is just to make sure they do the same thing each time they take the test. Alright, so you can use a countdown, but that might cause a little hesitation. So what I would do as a coach is let them start on their own movement. As I'm down here a few feet away from cone 2, I'll let them start at their own movement, and that's when I'll hit the stopwatch. And I'm not going to look at the athlete while they're running. I'm going to look right at the finishing line, and I'll stop the stopwatch right when he's done, right when he or she crosses. Some risks for this are, if you're not paying attention, you could get the wrong time. If the athlete is deconditioned, they could pull something, so you want to take that into account. But this is a good test for athletes that sprint short distances, such as football players, lacrosse players, soccer, field hockey, basically anyone that sprints short distances. Thank you. This is the 5-10-5 test. Since it measures change of direction, it's good for football players, baseball players, and any athlete that needs to change direction very quickly. There's going to be 3 cones, spaced 5 yards apart from each other. The athlete is going to go ahead and straddle the middle cone. And again, on this one, you can use a countdown or have them go on their movement. I prefer the movement, so there's no hesitation. The athlete's going to start by going to their left, touch the cone or a line drawn out near the cone, sprint all the way back across, same thing on this side, and sprint through the middle. So again, the coach will stand at the middle line, start when the athlete moves, stop when the athlete passes. Some considerations are that this test calls for the movement to go towards the left, so you might want to switch it up and go to the right as well. Also, it doesn't ever tell you which hand to touch with. So an athlete could possibly touch with the left on this side, and then also touch with the left over here. So you want to be aware of that. Either figure out if you want to tell them which hand to use, or just make a note of it. An athlete should be cleared before they start running around and changing directions like this for safety reasons. Next is a 3-cone drill. This is unique in that it involves 2 90-degree turns, but also a 180-degree turn, which would be good for some positions in football or baseball, like a defensive end in football. However, it's longer than the 5-10-5, so the 5-10-5 is probably a little bit better for game speed and the length of the play. What we have is 3 cones, 5 yards apart, but at a 90-degree angle. I'm going to ask Lisa to demonstrate for me. So she's going to start at the first cone, and she's going to stand behind it. And the first thing she's going to do is on her movement, again, we can use a countdown, but I'm going to let her go on her movement. She's going to run 5 yards to the second cone, so on you. She's going to touch and come back. And then she's going to go back around cone 2 again. Come towards the inside. Outside, there's the 180. And right back all the way through. Make sure she runs through here. Now again, there's no protocol of which hand to use to touch. So we'll have to go ahead and let our athletes know how to do it. And also, this is a confusing test. There's a lot of movement, so I would allow a practice run or 2. And make sure they have the lean when they're going around these last 2 turns. Next is the med ball put. This is testing bilateral horizontal pressing power. You can do this on a bench. You could also do it from the knees. You could do it standing. You could do it standing with a step. From the knees, you're going to have to make sure that the athlete, if you allow them to project forward, that they can catch themselves safely. I'm going to ask Hillary here to demonstrate, but I'm going to allow her to stay on her feet, and she's going to start in her little athletic position here, and she's going to explode forward, and she's going to be allowed to test. So what I'm going to make sure is that her toes are behind the line. I don't care if she steps past the line, but I'm going to make sure that she starts with her toes behind the line so she can coil down. She's not going to throw it yet, but she can practice and coil down. And I'll be down here to watch. So the back side of the medicine ball is what I'm going to be watching. So, okay, you can relax. All right, you You feel comfortable? You understand the test? Yeah. Now let's do it. I'm going to watch. And so we hit right here, and I would measure using the measuring tape that I have laid out. And I would measure how far it is from the start line to this point right here. This is a good test for football players, combat athletes, anyone that has to explode forward like that. Thank you. Next test is the vertical jump test. This is going to test vertical jump, force production. Don't do this test if the person cannot squat properly, and don't do it if you think that they're going to have bad landing mechanics. You don't want to cause injury. This is good for obviously basketball players and volleyball players, among anyone else who has to jump. So what Lisa's going to do is she's going to assume a nice squat position, so her legs a little bit apart. Actually, before that, I'm sorry, she's going to reach up with her dominant hand, and we'll see how high her reach is. So right there, estimating, I would, if I'm doing this test for real, I'm going to measure specifically, but I'm getting 84 inches there. All right, so now she can take her squat stance, and I'm going to allow a counter movement. So I'm going to allow her to swing her arms back, squat down, and jump up as high as she can and touch. Now, if I have tape or chalk, I can also put that there, so that way I can see the mark, and I can get, first mark, second mark, and I'll subtract and get how high her vertical jump is. So for now, let's just see it. All right, there we go. So her chalk mark was at 97, so 97 minus 84, get 13 inches. Thank you. The next test is a standing long jump. This is going to test posterior chain power and also your standing long jump, your horizontal jumping distance. So if you have a mat, you can use the mat. If not, just use a tape measure, make sure you have the starting line. Toes as close to the starting line as possible. And again, don't let anyone do this that can't land properly and that this would pose a risk to. This especially is difficult because you have the body moving forward, so you have to be able to control that. So Hillary's going to go ahead and demonstrate it. Again, she can use her arm drive, her drop down with her legs, and she can jump. And she's going to stick the landing. We want to make sure she doesn't take a step, that her feet are pretty near in the same angle. You don't want one here and one back here. And from the rearmost foot, we'll go ahead and measure the back side of the foot, right behind the heel. So we can use a ruler or whatever we need to do for that. But we're going to measure the back side of the heel. Next test is the push-up. We're going to do it however many the athlete can do in 1 minute. This is good for any athlete that needs to do repetitive upper body movements, since it tests muscular endurance with the upper body and core stability as well. We have Lisa here, so she'll demonstrate how to do a regular push-up and a modified push-up as well, if you have somebody that can't. So she's going to go ahead and get in position. Her hands are going to be even with her shoulders, just outside. Her body's going to be in a straight line. All right. Knees extended, feet close together. And she's going to keep a neutral spine here. And I won't have her do this in the real test. I won't have her hold up top very long. But when a minute starts, she's going to go down, touch the mat, come back up. And she's going to do as many as she can in a minute. However, even if she thinks she can keep going, but any of this is not looking good, like her back's arching or anything like that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the test. Thank you. Next, we're going to talk about the functional movement screen. This is designed to assess any risk that a client or anybody may have. So you can use this for anyone who's looking to move better or anyone who really wants to work out hard. So, hey, if they want to squat heavy weight but they can't do a bodyweight squat, then, we'll see that here. So the ones we're going to talk about is the overhead squat. We're going to talk about the active straight leg raise and the trunk stability push-up. So first, the overhead squat. I'm going to ask Hillary to go ahead and stand with the inside of her feet towards the outside, or just outside her shoulders. So spread your feet a little bit more. Just a little bit more again. All right. And I'm going to hand her the dowel, and she's going to put it on her head. And we're going to make sure that her elbows get to 90 degrees here. All right, and they are. Now I'll have her press it overhead, and she's going to squat down. And back up. She'll get 3 attempts, and what I'm looking for is to see that the tibia and the back are parallel, or the back is a little bit more vertical. I'm also making sure the dowel does not pass the toes, and I want to see that the knees are in line over the feet. The knees are in line over the feet. Okay? So, if any of those criteria are not met, we're going to go ahead and modify this, because all we know is, it's not a perfect score. And I'll stop right now and talk about the score. If she would have made it there, it would have been a 3. If she makes it with the modification, it's a 2. Does not make it with the modification, it's a 1. Any pain, that's a 0. Refer out for pain. So with the modification, we're going to put her heels up, and we're going to go again. Alright, so I'll watch, and she was able to get that, so now I know. If she couldn't get that, it's a 1. Alright, next we're going to do the active straight leg raise. This is going to go ahead and test hip flexion as well as hip extension, and also core stability. So I'm going to ask her to lay on her back with her arms by her side. Yep, palms up. If you have the FMS kit, you'd use the board for the squat, but you'd use the board here. I'm going to have her put her knees against this mat. Alright, so I'm going to find mid-thigh by taking the point between her patella and her anterior superior iliac spine. So we got her right here. Now, I'm going to test her right leg for hip flexion first. I'm going to ask her to point her toes, dorsiflex them a little bit, point up to the sky. Now don't let this move out, and keep this knee pushed against the mat. Raise the leg up, and I'm looking to see if the malleolus passes the dowel. It does? Okay. While she's doing that, I'm making sure foot's not turning out and the knee's placed against the mat. If she cannot do that there, I'm going to go ahead. We'll do the other side, so go ahead now. If she can't get a 3 there, I'm going to move the dowel into the middle of the patella, and we'll try again. We'll see if the malleolus can pass there. So go ahead, and I'm watching, and it does. If you can't get it with the modification, it's 1. If there's any pain, it's 0. So the last one is going to be the trunk stability push-up. So I'm going to ask her to lay on her stomach, feet straight, arms going to be out to her side, just outside of her shoulders. For men, they're going to start with their thumbs at the top of their forehead and come on out. That's going to be starting 1. For women, it's going to be the chin. And this is also the modification for men. So she's starting at the chin, and I'm going to have her make sure that her feet are perpendicular to the floor, the bottom of her feet, so her toes are up. She's going to make sure her knees are locked up, and she's going to push up. And what I'm looking to see is that everything can stay together there. Alright, so she did that. If she can't do that, she's going to move down to the clavicle, so her thumbs are even at the clavicle now. If she can't do that, it's a 1. If there's any pain, it's a 0. There's also a clearing test for this one, so I'm going to have her put her hands underneath her shoulders and not move any part of her lower body, just push her off the ground again. If there's any pain there, it's positive, and we're going to have to go ahead and refer out. 2 of these moves were bilateral. The overhead squat is going to test mobility and stability at the ankles, knees, hips, the core, the shoulder, thoracic spine, and scapula. This one right here is going to check core stability and scapular stability. It's not necessarily testing strength, but if you're not strong enough, then obviously that's going to compromise you. With active straight leg raise, you could test for an asymmetry, which is, besides previous injury, is also an indicator of future injury. So the active straight leg raise can really give you something if you have one side better than the other. Thank you.